Hi, it's Helen. And let me tell you, no amount of silence can prepare you for the moment your own child looks you in the eye and says the words that break something so deep inside, you wonder if you'll ever find all the pieces again. I was standing by the fireplace, still drying my hands from washing the dinner dishes, when David, my son, set down his glass of wine and said it like he was announcing a new business strategy. "I've decided to sell your house, Mom. Clara and I want to put a down payment on a new SUV. She deserves it. She's more important right now." For a few seconds, all I heard was the faint ticking of the wall clock, the only sound in a room that had just cracked wide open. He didn't say it with malice. That would have been easier in a way. He said it like it was logical, like it was normal, like it was kind. I blinked. "Excuse me?" I said softly, though every nerve in my body was screaming. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, as if I needed help understanding. "It's just sitting here, Mom. This house. It's too much for you. It makes no sense. Clara's car is breaking down, and we need something reliable. For the baby. You know how expensive things are these days." Ah, yes, the baby. The child they hadn't let me hold since she was 3 months old. The child I only saw in filtered holiday photos now. The same child they'd said I was too old, too tired, too traditional to be around for too long. And now she was their reason. I remember my hands still smelled of lemon soap. I had just finished polishing the sink. "I see," I said, but I didn't. Not really. I didn't understand how we had arrived at this moment where my son could sit in my living room and suggest, without shame, that I give up the home his father and I built brick by brick, the place where I had nursed him through chicken pox, where I had hung every birthday banner, bandaged every scraped knee. I looked around that room, the worn armchair Frank used to sit in, the crochet blanket I made during lockdown, the framed photo of David on graduation day, and I realized something cold and terrifying. He didn't see this as a home anymore. He saw it as equity, and I was just the tenant. "You haven't been paying the taxes," he added, trying to soften the blow. "Clara's been covering them, and we all agreed it's time to make smarter decisions." I felt a pressure build behind my eyes, not the tears, not yet. No, this was deeper. An ancestral ache, maybe. The knowledge of 1,000 mothers who gave and gave and gave, and were left with less than nothing. "Who is we?" I asked, but I already knew. Clara. She wasn't even in the room, but I could smell her perfume lingering in the air. I imagined her standing just outside the door, arms folded, smug and certain. She had orchestrated this. Of course she had. "She's family, Mom," David said, shrugging. "She just wants what's best for everyone." Funny, isn't it, that what's best for everyone somehow always meant what was best for her. He kept talking about appraisals and market value and moving me somewhere easier, somewhere smaller. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was staring at a crack in the living room ceiling. It had formed the year Frank died. I never fixed it. I don't know why. Maybe it reminded me that even strong things can fracture. Maybe it reminded me of me. I suddenly realized I'd been holding my breath. "David," I said, interrupting his spreadsheet monologue, "would you excuse me? I just need a moment." He smiled. That bright, confident, patronizing smile he'd learned somewhere along the line. "Of course, Mom. Take your time. We're just trying to help." Help. That word. That terrible, twisted word. I stepped into the hallway. My knees felt weak. My fingers trembled as I reached for the old leather journal in the drawer, the one I hadn't touched since Frank passed. I sat at the kitchen table, opened it to a fresh page, and wrote 2 words, "Remember this." And then I wrote more. About the silence in my son's voice, about the way he avoided my eyes, about the feeling that somehow I had become surplus, and I realized This wasn't the beginning of the conversation. It was the end of an unspoken one we'd been having for years. I just hadn't wanted to hear it. But now I had. And I wasn't going to forget. Not this time. The night after David left, I couldn't sleep. I moved from room to room like a ghost in my own life, touching the corners of things as if they might speak to me. My old tea kettle, the dent in the banister from when David fell down the stairs at 5, the faded photo of Frank holding our newborn in the garden. I whispered aloud into the dark, "What would you have said to him, Frank?" But the only answer was the slow creak of the house settling. I sat down at the kitchen table, lit a candle, and opened the journal again. It wasn't about the house, not really. It was about place. It was about memory. It was about being allowed to matter. When David was a teenager, he once told me, red-faced and angry, that he couldn't wait to get out of this stupid little house. I had cried in the laundry room that night, silently, over a pile of warm towels. I thought we'd come through that phase. I thought the years had softened him. I thought he had come to see what I saw, that this home was not just a building. It was a story. But now I saw the truth, and it hurt. David hadn't softened. He had just learned to speak betrayal fluently in the language of logic. The next morning I called my bank. I spoke to a kind-sounding woman named Tasha. She had a voice like someone who wore sensible shoes and took her coffee with too much sugar. I told her I wanted to check something, to look into the property title. My name was still on it, of course, but I needed to be sure, needed to know whether any quiet transactions had already begun under my nose. There was a pause on the line. Then Tasha said, "Yes, ma'am, you are still the sole owner of record, but I do see some activity from earlier this month. An inquiry from your son and a real estate agent. They didn't file anything, just requested valuation documents." My stomach sank. The wheels were in motion, Clara's wheels, the silent, slick kind that never squeak until the trap has already snapped shut. I thanked Tasha and hung up. I stared out the window at the bare maple tree in the yard, limbs like bones. It was winter now, and it was my season, I decided, my time to stand still, to resist. I called my lawyer next, Amelia. She'd been Frank's estate attorney, now semi-retired, a no-nonsense woman with steel-colored hair and the moral backbone of a cathedral. She answered on the second ring. "Margaret," she said, "I was just thinking of you." I hadn't heard my own name spoken with warmth in so long that it almost broke me. "Amelia," I whispered, "I need help. I need—" She didn't ask why. She only said, "Come in tomorrow morning. We'll talk everything through." And just like that, the fight began. Quiet, almost sacred in its simplicity. That afternoon I baked. I needed the rhythm, the muscle memory of it. Rolling dough, folding it, filling the house with something sweet instead of bitterness. I made apple turnovers, just like the ones I used to pack in David's school lunches. I remembered how he used to trade them at recess, then come home and sheepishly ask if I had more. I always did. I always made more. I wrapped 2 in wax paper and set them aside. Maybe, some foolish voice in me whispered, maybe he'll come to his senses. Maybe he'll knock on the door and say sorry, and I'll hand him the pastries and say, "We're okay." But the door stayed quiet, and my phone did not ring. At night I dreamed I was packing boxes, room after room, things disappearing into cardboard with no labels. I turned around and the house was gone. A sign stood in its place. Sold. I woke up sweating, whispering, "No." The next day, I walked into Amelia's office with my chin high and my hands cold. She poured me tea, Earl Grey. She always remembered, and I told her everything. About the conversation, about Clara, about the inquiry, about the feeling that I had already been erased, and they were just waiting for the paperwork to catch up. Amelia nodded, took notes, asked sharp, careful questions. And when I was finished, She leaned forward and said, "Let's build a line they can't cross. You don't owe them a single plank of this home, Margaret." "I gave him everything," I said softly. "Everything." "I know," she replied. "But now it's time to keep something for yourself." That afternoon I called the church, St. Mary's, where I had volunteered for years, where the choir ladies knew me by my lemon bar recipe and my too loud laugh. I asked Reverend Cole if I could speak at next Sunday's service. Not a sermon, just a testimony, something I needed to say. He didn't ask what. He simply said, "Of course, Margaret, you've earned the pulpit 100 times over." That night, I wrote again in the journal. February 7th. David tried to sell the house. He called it logical. Clara is pulling the strings. They don't see this home as a story, just a stone to step over. I will not let them turn me into a stepping stone, not quietly, not ever again. And under that I wrote, "Begin again," because I knew what I had to do next. And I wasn't afraid anymore. The snow had started falling by the time I walked up the church steps that Sunday, a soft flurry like sugar dust over stone. I wore my best coat, navy wool, missing a button at the cuff, and in my pocket, folded neatly in half, was the piece of paper I'd read over a dozen times and still wasn't sure I'd have the nerve to speak aloud. But when Reverend Cole stepped aside and gestured to the lectern, something inside me stood up straighter. Not pride, not defiance, just a quiet, hard-won knowing. The pews were half full, a few neighbors, some of the choir ladies, a young couple I recognized from the food pantry shifts. And in the back, David and Clara. I didn't expect them. Clara wore cream, of course, always the clean, polished look of a woman who never touches her own laundry. David looked tired, and I couldn't tell if that comforted me or broke my heart more. He gave me a small nod, uncertain. I did not return it. I unfolded the paper with fingers that felt stronger than they had in months. "Good morning. I asked Reverend Cole for a few minutes today, not to preach, but to share. Because I've learned something recently, something about kindness, about silence, and about the cost of both." A rustle moved through the room. I kept going. "Most of you know me as Margaret Hayes. I'm the woman who brings lemon bars to the bake sale and sings too loudly in the third row. But I am also a mother and a widow, and lately I have been made to feel like a piece of furniture, like something useful, until it becomes inconvenient." Someone in the front row shifted. I didn't look at David. I couldn't. Not yet. I was told recently, by someone I love, that my home, the one I built over 40 years with my husband Frank, should be sold. That it would be better used as a down payment for a car. That the woman he married deserved more. That I, as the one who birthed him, fed him, kept him alive through sickness and heartbreak and failure, should downsize. I heard Clara's sharp inhale. Let her squirm. And here's the thing. He didn't say it cruelly. He said it with concern, with what he thought was logic, because that's how betrayal comes, doesn't it? Not with a knife, but with a spreadsheet. A quiet murmur passed through the room like wind through branches. I folded the paper in half and looked up. "So I'm here to say something aloud that I should have said years ago. I will not be reduced, not by convenience, not by guilt, not by the new definitions of family that forget who built the very ground they stand on." Now I did look at David. His face had gone pale. Clara stared straight ahead, arms crossed so tightly it looked like she was holding herself together by force. I say this not in anger, but in mourning. I mourn the boy who used to sing to me in the car. I mourn the son who once gave me a macaroni necklace and said it was a treasure. I don't know where he went, but I hope he finds his way back. I stepped away from the lectern then. No applause, just silence, the kind that stretches long, full of weight and consequence. I left before the service ended. Outside, snow blanketed the sidewalk. I walked slowly, coat unbuttoned, not feeling the cold. At the curb, I heard steps behind me. "Mom." "David." I didn't turn. I couldn't. Not yet. "Mom, I didn't know I didn't realize it hurt you that much." I faced him. His face was red from the cold, or shame, maybe both. "You didn't realize because you never asked." He swallowed. "I thought you wanted to help us. I thought Clara—" I raised my hand. "Stop. I am not the villain in your marriage. Don't hand me her scripts." He looked at the ground. "She said you were lonely, that the house was too big, that it was falling apart, and that you'd feel better if you weren't burdened." My voice was steady. "That house has been my companion longer than your marriage has existed. Every floorboard, every cracked tile has held a piece of me. I am not a burden. I am not your financial asset. I am your mother." He blinked fast. Snow gathered on his lashes. "I didn't mean to make you feel—" "You didn't make me feel anything, David. I realized something, and I'm grateful. I needed to remember who I am." His mouth opened, then closed. I turned away. He didn't follow. That night, I sat by the fireplace and opened the journal again. February 10th. Spoke at church. He came. He heard me. I don't know if he understood. But the words are out now. No more silence. No more explanations. This is the beginning of the rest of me. And then, just under the final line, I added, "I am not for sale." I underlined it twice. 3 days passed. Quiet ones. The kind of quiet that settles over a house when it realizes it's no longer waiting for company. I cooked. I swept. I watched the birds outside the window as they danced across the frozen lawn. But even as I tried to focus on the small comforts, I could feel it, that creeping sense of something gathering, a shift in the air, like the sky right before a storm. Then on the 4th morning, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Clara standing there. No makeup this time, no perfume. Just a taupe coat, tied around her shoulders, and a face set like porcelain. "We need to talk," she said. I stepped aside, not out of politeness, out of curiosity. She moved through my living room like it was a courtroom. She didn't sit, just turned to face me, eyes sharp and dry. "You embarrassed us," she said, her voice cool and clipped. I said nothing. "You made a spectacle, at church of all places." I still said nothing. I had learned by now that silence is a weapon, too. Clara exhaled, clearly unused to being made to wait. "I think we got off track. I think there's been some miscommunication. David is feeling overwhelmed. He's trying to balance everything, work, the baby, me, and your house is a constant source of stress." "My house," I echoed softly. "Yes," she said too quickly. "Exactly. You shouldn't have to manage all this alone. That's why we thought downsizing." "You mean liquidating." Her eyes narrowed. "That's a harsh word." "Is it?" I took a slow step toward her. "Let me tell you something about this house, Clara. Every window was washed by my own hands. Every garden bed planted by me and my husband, God rest him. This floor you're standing on, Frank laid it, tile by tile, during a summer so hot we took shifts just to keep from fainting. That crack in the ceiling?" I pointed. "That appeared the day after we buried my mother. I cried for 6 hours, and when I looked up, it was there. Like grief had split the plaster. This is not property. It's a body, a history, and you don't get to carve it up and call that kindness." For a second, just a flicker, her mask slipped. I saw something raw beneath. And then, back it came. Cold, polished, weaponized civility. "I see. So this is about you." I didn't flinch. "Yes, Clara, it is." She shifted her weight. "You're being difficult. You're creating drama for David. Do you know how hard this has been for him? I blinked slowly. The weight of betrayal should be heavy. She looked stunned that I would say it, that I would name it. "Get out of my house," I said, calm as still water. "You're pushing your own son away," she snapped. I stepped forward until we were only inches apart. "No, Clara, I'm watching you pull him." She turned on her heel, but not before I saw it, just a shimmer of panic behind her eyes. I didn't slam the door behind her. I closed it like a mother closing a nursery door after the child finally falls asleep. Gentle, final. That night I didn't write in the journal. I didn't need to. Some truths live in the marrow, but I did call Amelia. She answered with her usual no-nonsense tone. "You're ready, then?" "Yes," I said. "Draw up the will, the new one." "And the house?" "It stays with me until I'm ashes," I said. "And after that, it goes to charity, not a dime to Clara." "And David?" I hesitated. "He gets one thing, one last chance, and if he can't take it, he gets nothing." "Understood," Amelia said, and I could hear the steel in her smile. "I'll prepare everything. We'll notarize this week." The following day, I called Bennett, David's company accountant, the man who had once brought me proof of Clara's deceit. "Mrs. Hayes," he said warmly, "it's good to hear from you. What can I do?" "I need you to deliver something," I said. "Not to Clara, to David, alone." He understood. That afternoon he arrived with a sealed folder. Inside, the updated will, property deeds, and a handwritten note. I sat at the kitchen table with a thick pen and the clean, quiet clarity of a woman who'd been underestimated one too many times. "David, this is the last kindness I will extend without condition. You were born in this house. I carried you up its stairs 1,000 times. I held your hand under its roof every time you cried. And now you would sell it like a second-hand sofa. You married a woman who sees my history as an inconvenience. You agreed with her. I'm offering you one dinner, one conversation. No Clara, no agenda, just us. If you want it. If you don't, that's your choice. But I will not be erased. Mom." I sealed the envelope, gave it to Bennett. "Deliver it to his office, into his hand, no one else." He nodded. "It'll be done." That night I lit the fire, set the table for 2, and waited. The clock ticked, and then headlights. The knock came just after 8. I didn't move right away. I sat there at the table, hands folded in my lap, listening to the fire crackle behind me. I had imagined this moment so many different ways, tears, shouting, apologies that came too late. But when I opened the door, none of those happened. David stood there, holding the envelope. His eyes were red, not from crying, not yet. From shame, from waking up too late to a house that had already locked its doors. "May I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside. He walked in slowly, the way a child does when he knows he's broken something that can't be glued back together. His eyes flicked to the table, 2 plates, chicken roasted with rosemary, the kind he used to beg for on his birthday. It smelled like childhood, like family, like something he'd traded away for a shiny lie. We sat. For a long moment, the only sound was the clink of my fork against china as I served a piece to each of us. Then he whispered, "I read everything." I nodded. "I didn't know. I should have, but I didn't want to see it. Clara, she made it all seem reasonable." "She always does," I said. He stared at his plate. "She said you were lonely, that you didn't need this house anymore, that we were helping." "You weren't," I said quietly. "You were simplifying me, flattening me into something manageable. And you knew it." His voice cracked. "I didn't want to think of you being angry." "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm awake." He pushed his plate away. "She's gone." I blinked. "She packed a bag 2 days ago, said I was too soft. that if I was choosing you over our future, then I was no use to her. I swallowed hard. I didn't ask you to choose. You didn't have to, he said. The truth made the choice for me. I looked at him then, really looked. He was older than I remembered, more tired, a man who had lived too long under someone else's definition of success, a man who had finally realized how much it had cost him. I miss the boy you were, I said softly. I miss him too, he replied. There were no tears, just silence, the kind that lets you hear your own heartbeat. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a photo. It was from a camping trip, him and Frank fishing by the lake, covered in mosquito bites and smiling like fools. She hated this picture, he said it made us look poor. We were, I said, laughing gently, and we were happy. He looked around the room. I don't deserve this house. No, I said, but you remember it now. That's something. Then I slid the folder toward him, the one Amelia and I prepared. Will, title, deeds, all of it. It's mine until I die, I said. After that it goes to Grace Hand's foundation. That's final, he nodded. Good. I wasn't expecting that. You're not going to fight me on it? No, he said. I came to sit at the table again, not to take it. And there it was, not an apology, not exactly, but something better, a recognition, a quiet surrender of ego. We sat for hours, talking about Frank, about the smell of wet grass, about how he used to press his face to the window when I baked cinnamon rolls just to check if the sugar was balanced. I laughed until I cried. Then he cried too. When he left, he kissed my forehead like he used to. He promised to return the next Sunday, with no paperwork, no wife, just himself. As the door closed behind him, I felt a weight lift, not the burden of grief, but the heaviness of being unseen. For the first time in years, I felt like someone's mother again, not someone's problem, not someone's tool, just someone who mattered.